Tony Stark, the genius in the iron suit, was bored. "I've saved the world a dozen times," he announced to his workshop. "It's time for a real challenge." His eyes landed on a flat cardboard box. "I will build this IKEA dresser, blindfolded." "First rule of engineering, know your components," Tony said, plunging his armored hands into the box. He sifted through the contents, feeling the smooth finish of the panels and the confusingly similar shapes of the tiny screws and wooden dowels. The paper instructions were useless, of course. "A minor detail," Tony scoffed. "JARVIS, display the schematics." A glowing blue hologram of the wordless stick figure manual projected from his gauntlet. He tilted his head as if reading it. "Piece of cake." He picked up a large panel, tracing its edges with his fingertips. "According to the diagram, this large flat thingy connects to the other large flat thingy," he narrated, his confidence unshakable. "Now for the fiddly bits," he muttered, picking up a tiny camlock. His suit's systems overlaid a holographic guide on the panel, showing him exactly where the small piece should go. Precision is key. With a few whirs and clicks from his suit, the first section was assembled. But when he tried to slide a drawer into place, it jammed at a very wrong angle. He stood back, placing a hand on his hip. Something was definitely not right. "Jarvis," Tony said slowly, "run a diagnostic. I think this drawer slot is defective." As he turned to gesture at the piece, his elbow caught a stack of other panels. They tumbled to the floor with a loud clatter. "No more Mr. Nice Guy," Tony declared. He grabbed a power drill. Aiming by feel alone, he squeezed the trigger. The drill whirred loudly, missing the pre-drilled hole entirely and chewing a brand new, very unhelpful hole right through the panel. He sighed, the sound echoing in his helmet. On the box was a picture of a perfect, gleaming dresser. At his feet was a chaotic pile of wood, screws, and splintered dreams. The two images could not be more different. "Sir," Jarvis stated flatly, "my analysis indicates multiple structural failures." A small, red error icon flashed to life on Tony's gauntlet, displaying a holographic diagram of his lopsided creation. Tony shook his head in disbelief. The holograms must be wrong, Tony decided. He fumbled for the paper manual again, running his armored fingertips over the printed diagrams. "Is this Swedish Braille? It's not very helpful." "Fine, I'll invent my own way." He held two pieces together that didn't quite fit. A low-powered pulse from his repulsor beam was meant to fuse them. Instead, it just superheated the wood glue, sending up a wisp of smelly smoke. He decided to try stacking. If he couldn't build it wide, he would build it tall. The result was a teetering, wobbly tower of misaligned panels that swayed with every breath. He looked up at it, wondering when it would all come crashing down. Tony paused. He stood amidst the wreckage of his project, a hand on his chin in a classic thinking pose. There must be a logical solution, he pondered. Perhaps I missed a step. Step 7B. "Jarvis, activate internal diagnostics. Let's try to see through this blindfold." Complex data streams and sensor readings filled his helmet's display. It showed him the heat signatures of the wood, but not which way was up. "Back to basics," he yelled, grabbing a screw. He held it against a panel and, abandoning all finesse, tried to hammer it in with his armored fist. The screw bent instantly, and the wood splintered. Defeated, he knelt on the floor. He began meticulously sifting through the pile of screws, dowels, and mysterious plastic bits, trying to identify each one by touch alone. This one feels screwy, and this one also screwy. After a great deal of effort, he managed to assemble one drawer. It was crooked, wobbly, and looked very sad, but it was a drawer. He held it up proudly. "A masterpiece," he declared to the empty room. His pride was short-lived. The drawer didn't fit. He tried again, and again. His confident posture drooped. He slumped. He threw his hands up. He even kicked a stray panel, which only hurt his metal toe. Finally, he stopped. He stood amidst a truly disastrous pile of IKEA parts that looked more like abstract art than furniture. He threw one hand up in exasperation and gestured to the mess with the other. "Okay, Jarvis," he sighed. "What now?" The AI's calm voice filled the workshop. "Sir, based on 1,342 failed assembly simulations, the optimal solution is to remove the blindfold." Tony scoffed. "Quitting is not in my vocabulary, Jarvis. There's another way." "I've been approaching this all wrong," Tony muttered to himself. "Too much tech. Too much noise." He tapped his helmet. "Jarvis, mute all sensors except tactile feedback. Let's go old school." The glowing readouts on his visor flickered and died, leaving him truly in the dark. He knelt down and let his armored fingers glide over the scattered pieces. He wasn't looking for schematics anymore. He was feeling for the grain of the wood, the precise angle of the pre-drilled holes, the subtle weight difference between the side panels and the top. "Aha," he whispered. He held up two pieces. His internal systems were silent, but his engineer's intuition told him they were the foundation. He could feel how their grooves were meant to lock together, a perfect wooden handshake. He found a small wooden dowel by touch alone. With a gentle, steady pressure that his suit could perfectly modulate, he pushed it into place. Then he slid the second panel onto the dowels. A soft, satisfying thunk echoed in the workshop. A perfect fit. One success fueled another. He found the opposite side panel, its weight and shape a mirror image of the first. Dowels in, panel on. Thunk. The basic frame of the dresser now stood on its own, sturdy and true. He ran his hands along the corners he had just joined. They were seamless. No wobbles, no gaps. "See, Jarvis?" he said to the silence. "It's not about seeing. It's about understanding." Next came the tricky part, the flimsy back panel. He felt around the pile until his fingers brushed against the thin, flexible sheet of fiberboard. He carefully lifted it, making sure not to bend it. He laid the frame on its front and placed the back panel into its groove. Then he located the bag of tiny nails. Holding a nail between his thumb and forefinger, he prepared to do the impossible, hammer blind. He didn't need a hammer. He was Iron Man. With a flick of his index finger, powered by a micro-repulsor set to 0.1% power, he tapped the nail. Tink. It went in perfectly straight. Tink, tink, tink. He moved with rhythmic precision, securing the back panel with a perfectly spaced series of nails, all driven by the gentle tap of his finger. It was less like construction, more like music. With the back secure, the structure was complete. He carefully lifted the dresser and stood it upright. It was solid. He gave it a little push. It didn't wobble. A small, proud smile played on his lips beneath the helmet. "Phase 2. The drawers," he announced. He gathered the smaller panels, feeling for the four sides in the base of the first drawer. He laid them out on the floor in what he sensed was the correct orientation. He remembered the fiddly bits from his first attempt. The cam locks. This time, he felt how the screw pulled the lock into place, how a simple quarter turn created a surprisingly strong bond. Click. Soon, the first drawer was a perfect, sturdy box. He found the handle and the two small screws. Feeling for the holes on the drawer front, he screwed the handle on tight. This was the moment of truth. He lifted the drawer, found the runners inside the dresser by feel, and slid it in. It glided smoothly, silently, all the way to the back. A perfect fit. Flawless, he breathed. Now that he had the feel for it, the other two drawers came together in minutes. It was a blur of dowels, cam locks, and perfectly gliding components. He was in the zone, a master craftsman at work. He picked up the final drawer, slid it into the last empty slot, and pushed. It closed with a soft, satisfying thump. It was done. The challenge was met. He stood up and took a step back. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it. The solid presence of a well-built piece of furniture. He placed his hands on his hips, a triumphant hero standing over his conquered foe. Behold, Jarvis, the mom is vanquished. Time to appreciate my genius. With a flourish, Tony Stark pulled off the silk blindfold. He stared. The dresser was indeed perfect. Every joint was flush, every drawer slid like a dream. There was just one tiny problem. He had installed all 3 drawer fronts upside down.